Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes right now, please leave a 5-star review. Guys, I'm taping an album. This is a pretty big deal. I've been doing stand-up like 10, 11 years. I'm recording my first comedy special on Thursday, January 6th at Governor's in LEVITTOWN. It's actually called Live from January 6th. Pretty fun. I'm going to talk about my experiences at the Capitol and just from life, my last, I guess, 10 years or so of material that I've built up. So I'm so excited to finally be recording this special. I'm pretty sure it's going to be out everywhere, but I'll be more aware of what's going to happen with it once we do it. But yeah, come on out. For tickets, go to my website, chrissiemayr.com, or you can go to the Governors in Levittown Comedy Club website. I believe it's govs.govs.com. Got a bunch more dates coming up after the album recording on the 6th. I believe we'll be back in Jersey in January, and then I'm heading out to a bunch of new cities in 2022. I'll be in Savannah, Georgia in March, going back to Florida in March to Side Splitters at Tampa. So I'm adding in more dates, and if you want to tag your favorite comedy club on Twitter, tag me as well. They look at all of that stuff. Quick shout out to some of our sponsors. I collaborated with Levinsky's Hot Sauce to bring you Nightmare. It's a verde sauce. This is so cool. I've never had my own hot sauce before. Go to levinskystopshelf.com. Use promo code CMP. These are normally $10, but you'll get a couple bucks off. And plus you can have me on the cover of a hot sauce bottle in a corset eating somebody's insides. Fun stuff, guys. Also, I've got t-shirts on tpublic.com. I really like this Mayor shirt. Harkens back to the Obama era. Remember that? That was a good time. And I have this fun, patriotic Make America Great Again shirt. Go to tpublic.com. There's a bunch more designs on there as well. And I wonder if the Christmas shirt is on sale now. That would make sense. You know, guys. All right. Hope you guys had a great Christmas. I'm so excited to have this guy on the podcast today. I don't know if this completes my collection of FNT boys, but I'm so excited he's here. He reviews movies. He's super fucking smart. I can't wait to get into a bunch of stuff with him. Odin of OMB Movie Reviews. Yeah.
What's going on? How's it going?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Probably the earliest podcast I've ever recorded. And it's not even that early. It's
basically lunchtime. And thank you for working around baby Thor's nap schedule. I'm literally looking at a monitor of him napping right now. So thank you.
So cute. That's so cute. Is this your first baby? And how old is he?
Yes, this is our first, and he is, I guess, 15 months now. So a little over a year old at this point, which is insane just to think about, because he was born in one of the worst years of all time. You know, he was born in 2020, and to have one positive thing come from the year is at least at least a little bit of light in the darkness that was 2020, and then of course throughout 2021. So I'm stay-at-home dad because I'm off from work until after Christmas break as a teacher, and therefore also daycares are closed, and since the wife is still doing full-time work because she's a marketing manager, so she doesn't get time off, she is not able to take care of him. So that's all me.
It's hard to balance it all. And wasn't it funny? Remember way back when it was cute to have like one pandemic baby, and now we're at the point where like you could have easily had two pandemic babies. Like, right? I don't know. I've never been pregnant before, but I'm like, well, I feel like you could have a whole family of pandemic babies at this point.
Yeah, if you go back in the historical timeline, it was late 2019 where things started to word started to spread from China and everything. So yeah, you could have theoretically had two children during this time. It's insane.
It is insane. And it's cool that like you guys are, or like you're not one of these guys that's too proud to like stay home and take care of the kids. Like my brother is an engineer, and his wife, God, I think she works for some video game company, but like,
oh wow,
he left his job to take care of the kids. I think maybe starting in 2021. I don't remember exactly when, but I never saw that coming for him. And it's pretty fucking cool. And it made me kind of like, I don't know. It made me look at him a little differently. And then, they have plans for him to eventually go back to work. And it's just like a for now situation.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? They had decided like what they would have spent in childcare costs. It wasn't going to be worth it. So he might as well just watch the kids.
Yeah, we did early on when we were both, because he was born in October of 2020, and so I was able to get a couple weeks off as a teacher, and it was no real problem. But obviously, I needed to go back to work, and my wife needed to go back to work as well. And so we were able to, she was able to work from home. And her trying to balance that with him, it was just chaos. So luckily she got to be like on a part-time schedule during that time. But eventually we just decided, hey, you know what? It's actually going to be a better idea to get, basically we had a nanny for like a few months in his life and helping his development as he was getting ready to go into daycare. And cannot be as thankful as we are for that the ability to be able to actually afford one, but also having an amazing nanny that she was in that process, because I can tell you as a stay-at-home dad, there's some people where it's like there's that you kind of like mentioned a little bit, like there's that shame element almost.
That's for women.
That's for women. Women are supposed to be at home.
Women belong inside the house.
Exactly.
Men sleep
Get in the kitchen
outside.
and make me a sandwich. I've never really been that person. So, but what I can say though is I'm also not full-time stay-at-home dad material either, because I love my son. I love baby Thor, but he is a toddler now, and he is full-on toddler mode. Always needy. Always. Needing to be like, in his, on his level at all times. And so I can do that for a while, but after a while I'm like, I need some me time. I need some alone time.
You're like, I need a bath with Epsom salts. I need some Odin time. Like, this is my Odin juice. And it's just like a big cartoonish wine glass. I'm just using all of the mommy tropes and
I know, right?
That's pretty cool though. Do you feel like, I want to get into how you started reviewing movies, and I also think it's very cool that you're a teacher. My sister's been a teacher her whole career. I mean, I've had a million day jobs, one of which was working in admissions for an all boys private prep school on the Upper East Side. So I feel like between me and my sister, we've like seen a lot, and I also really respect that you have this side hustle, because that's been my whole life, and I've felt like I've always to some degree had to hide who I really am from my job, hide my personality, hide my interests, because I've had just so many examples of once you start letting it slip, what you do, it's only a matter of time before someone tries to get you fired. Or do you feel like you've had to hide who you are? You know what I mean? I imagine Odin's not your real name.
It's not. Yeah. So yeah, obviously there are certain things that I do and say that are me. Like, there's very little that I hide, but there are certain subjects, or there are certain things that I would love to say online, with my face being shown. But obviously as the reason, as you mentioned, I can't, I basically skirt that line pretty, as consistently as I can and as carefully as I can, because, there's a lot of things that I wish that I could say. One thing that I mentioned on my show last night in my Discord server as well is that, the place where I work, it's a Catholic institution. And so therefore we work within the realm of a diocese. And basically mandates are coming. And so, just to ask for prayers, because obviously it's going to be difficult with that. But obviously I can't, specify names, and I can't, so like those are the kinds of things where I try to tread very carefully, because obviously I want to be myself. I don't want to hide who I am, but also, as you know, there are certain things that, we just can't say, because literally it would be all I need to do is clip this one bit, show it to this person, and then you're gone,
What state, and I don't know how much of this you're like open about, like, but can you say like what state you're in? And like,
I'm in the great state of Tennessee.
Okay.
So
even in Tennessee, the mandates are coming.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's insane, is that because we actually have a great governor. I believe it's Bill Lee, I think is his first name, but Governor Lee. He's a great governor. He has been very prudent during this entire process. And he actually just signed a law within the past few weeks. He just signed a law where it put limitations on mandates. It put limitations on mask mandates, limitations on vaccine mandates as well. And it was great. The issue that came about, because obviously now, one being a stay-at-home dad has been obviously taking my full attention. But during this, nap time, I've been having to use this time where normally I'd be resting, relaxing, maybe doing a little bit of prep, for the next semester. Now I've been having to do research on, okay, how can I build my case? When these things, when the shoe eventually drops, like now that's what I've been having to focus on. So I dove into this law because I'm like, oh, maybe this law I can use, saying, hey, you're violating state law by doing this. And unfortunately, there was an amendment, I believe it was Amendment 12 in the law that was passed, that would have allowed for this to include private schools and private businesses. And essentially, in the state Senate, it died. In the state Senate, they would not pass it with those amendments. So the state House tried to pass it. And that would have basically then said, okay, all of these things that we've mentioned for schools, it's not just public schools, it's private schools. We could have then used that to fight, saying, hey, you're violating state law here, right? Okay. I'm gonna sign, whatever form I need to file a complaint with state, but I can't do that because it only applies to public schools at this point.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I know my sister's been watching. Like everybody I know has been watching the mandates very closely, and she is in Vegas, and she's at the point where like she just has to get tested every week. And she's told me, like, I remember over the summer, like horror stories or fall. Now I say horror every time, like Gary. I can't get it out of my head. Like there's no regular way. The word is now ruined for me. Thanks, Gary.
As with so many things with Gary.
Horror stories of her waiting in these huge lines, and like all the teachers go at the same time. And I can't remember if she has to pay for the tests or the school pays for the tests, but
she probably does, because for us in the and that's the other thing I read very carefully was the mandate as it's coming through. And yeah, we'll be on, if we choose to get a exemption, first off, it has to be granted. So obviously I'd be filing for a religious exemption because I protested on moral grounds. But if that is allowed, then we have to wear a mask every single day and test once a week, and we have to pay for it. All this, by the way, in the midst of, I don't know if you heard the news today, but apparently the CDC has now come out to say the PCR test that they've been using since the early times of the pandemic, they're no longer going to be using. I
have heard that, and I've heard kind of from the beginning that they're kind of not the most effective tests. And even the guy who invented them said that they were never meant to be used as a diagnostic tool. They were meant to be used for research. And again, it's like we as regular people find ourselves in this position of like, just like you're like, I guess I have to study law for the next 2 weeks.
I know, right?
And like, I guess I have to look into mandates and what are my rights, and like, what can we do? And then average people find themselves looking into the function of PCR tests and how variants are created. And it's like, oh man, what were we doing in school all these years?
I know, right? Now we have to be scientists. Now we have to be lawyers. It's like now I got to have Rakita's stream on 24/7 to see, what's going on and what we can do.
I have to figure out a way to just DM him all my questions. And yeah, I know. It's interesting. I have something like going on that I'm gonna probably be able to talk about soon, but it's kind of related to the mandates, and it's very scary. And then people are like, oh, that's your fault, you're in New York, you should get out. But it's like, oh, you can't always immediately eject.
No.
While it is good to like tour the country and see what other states might be good to eventually get to.
It's also tough, as I understand that as well, right? People say just move. It's like, okay, yeah, easier said than done. It's like, how much it costs to move, especially during a time when there are so many places. I have friends that they're trying to find other jobs, but all of the jobs that are even in states like mine that, do have laws that do protect, still all the jobs they're looking at are, requiring, or having some type of mandate. And it's a tough position, and it's even tougher, to be in a Catholic institution in a state and in, basically Bible Belt country, because there aren't a lot of Catholic institutions. So it's not like, oh, just leave your specific diocese, etc. It's like, again, not something that's really in the cards because of how few, Catholics there actually are in this area. And so it's tough, but obviously I have, faith, and that's something that's been helping me get through, this process. And luckily there are a few people that I work with that are awesome, and I've been able to really, bounce off of as we go through this.
That's what I think is I've been telling people, if you're feeling like really freaked out, is like talk to your coworkers, like see if you can find someone who also doesn't want to get the vax, and share resources. Like maybe someone has a lawyer friend they're consulting with. Okay, like can you guys talk? Like can you figure it out? And you feel less alone, because this has all been designed to make us feel bullied and social pressured into doing things we may not necessarily have to. And it is scary hearing they're no longer to use that test, because it's like they could so easily bring out now a different test that's even more sensitive, that they can continue. Oh, every time you get a cold, now it's a variant. You got to shut it down. I keep joking on Twitter, I can't wait for Big Pharma to take advantage of my shrimp allergy and come out, oh, Chrissy, you have shrimpacron now. Sorry, you got to can't work ever. And they want to make money off of like every little thing someone can
absolutely
get.
Absolutely. And that's why, I don't know if I've mentioned this on my stream a couple of times, but have you picked up or started reading the new Robert F. Kennedy book?
Yes,
The Real Dr. Fauci?
Ordered it in like over the summer so long ago. I ordered it. I forgot about it. And then
my goodness,
I think in October or early November, and it's this thick. It's like this freaking thick, but I'm the little bit that I'm into it, I'm like so hooked. And it's like, it's going to be, I think it's full of tea is what I keep hearing from people like Jimmy Dore who've read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Or
absolutely.
Theo Von interviewed him.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane. Yeah. Cause it's actually, it's selling like hotcakes. It's sold out. I try to get it, I wanted to buy one for a lot of people in my like, inner friend circle and family, because I am around a lot of people that don't feel the same way that I do. And I'm like, this book, I mean, it just goes through everything. And there's literally every section has over 100. I remember the section on, are you okay with saying certain names of certain items that are not politically correct, I guess, for YouTube's space?
Like a dildo?
What's amazing is we could say that, but you can't say something like, I was thinking of the drug that starts with an H. That starts with hydro.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like the fish tabs.
Yeah, so
that's what people were calling it, right? That it's fish bowl cleaner or like fish.
Is that what they were saying? Oh, I know that for the I one, for the Ivor one, they were saying that was, it's horse dewormer.
And the H one was like fish cleaning tank tabs. I don't know.
And it's like both have been around for decades, etc. But in that one section on that drug, he has like 130 citations.
Wow.
And so I've just gone into now.
Has footnotes.
I've just exactly. I've just now gone into the horse dewormer section, and that one I'm sure will also have 100 plus citations as well. And it's not just random blogs that he's citing. He's going to CDC, NIH. He's going to actual research studies, and so I've been like checking some of them because I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. Oh, okay, here's the study.
Yeah.
So
he's backed up everything he said. He was talking about. I think he was. Wow, I saw him on Michaela Peterson's podcast. I do really like her stuff. Like that's like one podcasts where I'm like in a bath or something. Like, yeah, I'll see what I like her guests. And she had him on, and there's this clip going around where he was like, yeah, they have to get it approved for kids because that's their way to worm around having no liability because in combination with emergency use authorization. Plus, if they get it approved for kids, well, then they can scoot around. Even if it's approved, they can scoot around the liability. So they're not on the hook for anybody's damages or death.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that also is just, it's amazing because he kind of goes through it saying, never in our history have we ever had anything like this, where there have been so many caveats given to this industry.
Wow.
And never have we basically seen such demonization. And in fact, what's amazing is that and again, for people in the chat maybe not understanding, we're using coded language because obviously if we were on a true free speech platform, just a free speech platform, we would be
like a Compound Media or a Rockfin, which
exactly right.
Yeah.
We would be saying the names of these things. So I have to say horse dewormer because that is what the public message is on the drug. We know that it's used not just for that, but it's also used for other health benefits. But what's amazing is that there's a citation from actually Japanese researchers where basically they talk about it as on the same level as Tylenol. as like being one of those things that was discovered that is of that much importance and common use, to the point where I think even in Africa, it's something that you can get over the counter, and it's something that like a huge percentage of the populations in that country take every week.
Yes, and there are countries that they give out little packets to their people, and those are the things that are in them, and they seem to not have as spiky of numbers.
Yeah.
So RFK is really great. Yeah, he's the nephew of John F. Kennedy, and he's just so incredibly like smart and well spoken, but he has like a crazy little thing going on with his voice, which makes it sound like very crackly. I forget what the actual name of the thing is that he suffers from, but if he didn't have that, I feel like he could be easily in public office.
Oh yeah,
because he's got the look, and he's smart, and he's connected, and
or doing podcasts at the very least, talking about this, and that's why it's hard, because like I don't want to listen. I feel bad. I don't want to listen to interviews with him just because it's like
he's unlistenable. Yeah. His voice sounds like you're putting someone in a garbage disposal. It's really bad. His voice is like, it's wood chipper voice. It's not good. It's not good. But it's
great. Tough. It's tough.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't listen to him. You should power through, because it's that good. What he has to say is that, and maybe that's why his book is so damn thick, because he's like, what? I know I'm fucking impossible to listen to. You guys are going to cringe at the sound of my voice. Let me just write the thickest book possible, and like, you guys can go read the book.
And that's probably why it's selling at like hotcakes. They're like, I don't want to listen to this guy, but I need to know what's going on. And
audiobook is available too. No, that's fine. I'll get into this, big boy.
I was going to say, actually, because that's why I actually picked up the Kindle version, because it was, one, the only way to get it, and then two, it was on sale for like $2.99. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get. And so actually, it was so like, this is how important it is to me, because a lot of people, understand me as, the movie guy, box office numbers, things like that. But this is so incredibly important to me, especially, it was important before, but now even more so because of the implications just for my own, work and job. But I went so far as to, for like birthday presents, Christmas presents, because they're all around the same time of the year, I got my parents both Kindles, and I got it specifically for my dad who works in healthcare, specifically so that I could get him this book, because I actually ordered it from Simon & Schuster, and they were like, oh yeah, we have it in stock, and oh yeah, we'll get it to you in a couple days. Have not gotten any notification that it's been sent. So I was like, you know what? I'll go ahead and get him the Kindle, and I'll go ahead and buy him the Kindle, because I really think it's important that he gets it, that he reads it, because, as you were saying too, it's not even that he could have been in politics. The dude, it's amazing how they're throwing his name through the mud, because he's not a Republican. He's not a conservative. I mean, I'm reading in this book, and it's like, this dude's been fighting for like environmental concerns and environmental issues for a lot of his career. He still calls himself a Democrat and says, my fellow Democrats. So it's very clear that that is the case, but he's being labeled as conspiracy theorist.
Conspiracy, yeah. His whole life has been suing pharmaceutical companies, and I'm sure you guys will hear on other interviews that he does. Yeah, he's just like, this is what he's done for his whole life, and he has like, the things he could say about Pfizer and Moderna and like how many, and it's like, right, we haven't heard of these guys. Like, they weren't. What groundbreaking medicines did they produce before this? And it's like, when you start looking into it, you're like, oh man, they're all just big, dirty companies trying to stay afloat, trying to make a buck. Same thing with people who run our country. They're just big, dirty people trying to stay in power, trying to like,
especially
make as much money as they can from it.
When the ones making the decisions own patents and own stock in companies that are benefiting from this, and they're actively fighting against these, drugs, these cocktails that are being recommended, of, basically ones where patents have expired so that they are dirt cheap, like $5 to $10. You start to realize, and that's again something that he's unpacking, is let's go into the history of these drugs. Let's go into the history of what's been said about all of these, the impact that it's had, and the recommendations from these different doctors who've actually been frontline workers who have seen the impact on it. And it's insane. Just the one stat that keeps coming up a few times is one where basically, had these drugs not been demonized and attacked by Fauci and the other powers that be, they estimate that you could have had a 60 to 80% reduction in deaths.
Wow.
Which, when you think about how many people have died worldwide, you're like, that would have been very different than where we are now.
And then it's like you can't really say, "Oh, my conspiracy friend is so crazy," when these facts are all laid out on the table. It's really harder to dismiss an idea like depopulation. It's hard to dismiss an idea of like, no, this is money over helping people. This is like, why would a company? Of course, you're going to turn down the cheaper alternatives at work, and then, oh, you guys want pills? You guys like pills? You want to take this? You want to take the jab? I can make a pill. You know, it's like I have an easy bake oven. It's like you're just taking the same shit and then putting your wrapper on it.
Yeah, and then also the drugs that are being recommended, that was the other thing that he mentions as well, as saying, while Fauci is demonizing this specific, drug, he's encouraging this one, which has no studies backing it up, and also has shown a level of toxicity, and also, by the way, he owns stock or / owns patent. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's trust these people with with these medical choices,
Right. So it's like, we just do the best we can. I don't know. It's easy to get angry, like, oh, people aren't angry enough. People aren't whatever. It's like people are at where they're at. And at this point, like, you're not, I don't know. Are you really going to convince somebody? No, I think you do it through tiny, tiny article drops, like conversation starters, like, oh, just asking questions. You never want to take your friend or relative. And I see on Twitter, like, oh, should I cut off my mom who got the jab? Should I stop talking to her? It's like, oh man, it's like, no, my dad got it.
Yeah.
Like, and I understand why, because he was dating this woman who like kind of pressured him into it. And like, oh, you're not gonna be able to see grandkids unless you do it. But he's also now he's kind of back to his normal self of like, oh, fuck it, I'm not doing boosters, I'm not doing shit. Like,
Yeah, and exactly right. And we see oftentimes the cutting off is happening from the other side, right? Where it's like oh, wait, you haven't gotten it yet? Cut you off. It's like, that's where it's really coming from. And I think that's important for us, especially who are more skeptical, who have questions, who are finding information that is very much fighting, the narrative that's being spun, that we are the ones that don't do that we're the ones that say, no, I still want to talk to you. And as you said, right, the article drop, every now and then, sending a video here or there, asking someone, hey, have you read this book? Or, hey, you might want to look into this. But even then, right, there's a battle. I told, my best friend, who has been my best friend my entire life. And, we're very different on this specific issue. And I mentioned, hey, have you heard of this doctor? I'm sure you've heard of Dr. Peter McCullough, who went viral after his Joe Rogan, being on the Joe Rogan podcast. And so, I'd mentioned him, and the first thing he sends me is he Googled the name, and the first thing that pops up is a Wikipedia article that labels him as a conspiracy theorist, that labels him as spreading misinformation.
Of course, Dr. McCullough, who for years was one of the leading experts in like kind of natural cures. And like, if you're someone who is kind of in the kind of like health industry or like natural health industry, like you've heard of him. It's like not like my mom was made more aware of him, I guess, or like following him when she was diagnosed with cancer. So it's like he's not new to the scene, but of course now what he knows, what he speaks out about, oh, they got to label him all these horrible names, call him conspiracy theorist, call him disinformation pusher, all that. And he also has a good book about COVID-19 that I'm reading right now. I think it's with Mercola and RFK. I think they wrote it together. You can all tell how fast of a reader I am. I just have these books forever, and I read half, and I see something shiny, and then I move on.
Hey, as someone with ADD, I totally understand. You're like, oh man, this is great. Because I go through those phases where it's like, this is my passion. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then it's like, now this is my passion. And then all of a sudden, oh, but I still really like this. And so it's like, I have all these different passions and all these things that I'm interested in. And then my mind and brain can only focus on one at a time.
When I'm feeling anxious, Odin, I like to have a little CBD. Let's do a quick shout out to our sponsor, Cushy Dreams. Woo! Join the men and women who are sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. Cushy Dreams specialize in high quality bud in tins and pre-rolls, which I like for their portability. There's different indica sativa blends like hustle, create, relax, dream, peace, energy. So whatever you're feeling, whatever you want to do with your day, Cushy Dreams has your back. They're doing tons of tests to ensure compliance and purity. You can find the results on their website, cushydreams.com. That's KUSHY dreams.com. At checkout, use the promo code CMP to get 20% off plus free shipping. Yeah, give yourself the gift of calming down in the new year. This is good. I should have read the thing that was typed out for me.
One, that was a great spot, but two, also the transition to that spot was fantastic.
Ooh, I was smooth because sometimes I I forget to do the read and then I do it at the end, which is not the best. Okay. So that's good. I don't know. I like hearing how you're handling the like sort of work-life balance, you know, hiding your true identity, having to tiptoe around what you really want to say. It can't be easy.
Mm-hmm.
So as a religious person, how Netflix release of Cuties, this was what, 2020, how did that change your opinion of Netflix?
I mean, I had already had various opinions about Netflix just because it's a giant corporation. And I mean, let's be honest, they basically fund everything. I think it was a South Park joke where like they were trying to get a show made and they were like, oh, let's go to Netflix. They'll put anything on TV. Because it's true. Like they literally will do anything. And so it was not even just the fact that they, you know, because it's important to remember the facts, because some people wrongly said that Netflix made it, but that's not true. Netflix only distributed it. So it was produced by someone else. They distributed it, which again is still a part of the process. And so therefore they can still be called out for it. The issue was the fact that they tried to hide it, that they tried to ignore very clearly disturbing. I mean, their own description on Netflix itself was very, you know, very disturbing. And then they changed that.
And it was so sus.
Oh, it was absolutely. And so that to me, and just the fact that, and I made a video about him just the other day, but Scotty Boy Mendelson, who is a writer over at Forbes, who does box office coverage, to see him and so many other people like go to bat for it when all you needed to do was just see the image they chose. Like, and this is the image that Netflix chose as the promotional poster. You're like, how in this world can this have happened? How in the world can this not be problematic? Again, you have children who are scantily clad. How do we not see that there's a problem with this?
Yeah.
So I already had issues with them before, but that just added another moral element to the issues with the company. And yeah, and again, it's one of those things too where, you know, I wanted to be a part of the it's just
and this was like a version they had, I think maybe in France or Europe somewhere. It's like a little more wholesome, and then it's like, really, do we need to see this? Like, do we know who we're attracting with posters like this? It's like, of course they know.
It's almost like Netflix was specifically trying almost to gear it towards specific people. And it's like, okay, now there are a lot of really disturbing questions that we need to ask you, Netflix, because as you just showed, the original poster, nothing about that, right? That was not a part of the promotional material for, you know, at least the original promotion, as far as I'm concerned. I haven't watched a lot of the trailers because, again, the first time I found out about it was from the poster that we saw, and I was like, okay, I don't want to. And then it was clips on Twitter that were being shared around. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is disgusting. And so, yeah, it's just awful. And I know a lot of people obviously canceled their Netflix, and I think rightfully so. And then, of course, there's people like me where I try, you know, because I'm a family guy, and I, you know, obviously believe in teamwork in that family life with my wife. So I tell her about it, I explain everything, but of course she's like, please don't cancel our Netflix.
Oh, right. It's all I have.
Yeah. If there's anyone I'll ever sim for, it's obviously my wife, but let's just say that I still definitely called it out, and I still supported anybody that did cancel it, because I think it's, you know, terrible what they did. And I think that, again, it's calls for an investigation into not just the film and the film production itself, because there was a lot of information coming out about how they did the auditions, which were disturbing. Like, they auditioned like hundreds of girls, and it's like, excuse me, what's going on with this?
I remember when I was auditioning for A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum in high school. It was my first play. The audition process was just a bunch of us girls were lined up on stage, and we were auditioning for the role of like courtesans, you know, old-timey prostitutes. And the and the audition process was just the guy, like Larry Waxman, our theater actor, just pointing, you, and you. That was the audition. And I crushed it. So, but you know, we were high school age. I don't know.
Yeah, I did. I did theater as well when I was younger, and did it for a long time. Started doing it when I was 11 Did it with like a local church, and did it with that church specifically 20 years.
Oh wow! What did you play? What?
I mean, I started off, just doing it because my sister was doing it there, and my mom wanted me just to be out of the house during the summer to, to do something.
I could see you playing Joseph in the nativity scene, especially with that beard.
So, well, again, the beard wasn't always. I mean, especially an 11-year-old Odin did not have a beard. But funny enough, when I was in 4th grade, and I think this is an experience that a lot of people have in their 4th grade year in Catholic or Christian school, is there's always a nativity play. And maybe it's a different time in one's life in a Catholic school, but I actually was cast as Joseph in the nativity play during my time. And Mary was actually the girl I had a crush on, and she did not like me. So
you were like, let's immaculately conceive. Let's do this, Mary. We had in my like Methodist church, out on Long Island growing up, like I think I was like sheep number 3 or something. Like I wasn't at the level, I wasn't at Mary level to be cast, but I was a little sheep, and I was like just crawling on my hands and knees down the aisle with all the other sheeps, and then like picking off the stuff that's fallen off. It was low budget. It was a low budget production. And then that was the same year my brother leaned back in the choir and like his whole head went up in flames, like just too many candles. We had a lot of candles.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But that's what you remember. That's like the most fun. Like I don't know. Like it was I guess this is just like how Protestants go, but it was just like race to the verse. It was a lot of egg hunts. It was like just a sense of community. It wasn't like, didn't feel like stuffy or strict or anything. And like I'm more familiar with then I went to like a Catholic college and like would go to mass and always felt connected to God. But like the older I get, the more curious I'm getting, and the more I'm like, oh, well, I want a Bible. Let's see what's in that crazy book.
Let's read some of those darker passages that are in there, right?
Yeah, you know what? Let's get with the small print. I'm finally ready.
It's actually funny because you mentioned about the way that it was with your own church, with the Easter egg hunts and stuff. It's like that in most Catholic churches, nowadays, because obviously when you really compare Catholic churches today, post Vatican II. To what they had been beforehand, you'll find a lot of similarities actually between a lot of Protestant churches as far as function is concerned.
Okay, right.
Catholic churches,
they're going to make it the same for. I think the big difference with like Protestant churches, they wanted to get away from the idols, and they wanted to get away. Like we had some stained glass windows in the church, but like the church was more simple. It was like kind of plain white. There wasn't like, we didn't have like statues around. It was like just kind of like chill. I don't know. It looks kind of low budget to me. And we still had our scandal, like the I don't know if preacher is the right word for her, but we had a female preacher.
Okay.
Pastor.
Yeah,
and she ran away with someone's husband. So we kept it fun. It was a fun church.
We had all kinds of stuff going on at ours.
Yeah. I was like, woo boy.
But again, no matter what it is, no matter what church you're a part of or faith you're a part of, people are people. So there's gonna be problems, And I think that's sometimes the issue that we fall into, is that we oftentimes put either our own faith or our own ministers like up on these pedestals. And even though I think that there's a degree to which we should also remember that they're human and that they're gonna fail, and that in and of itself is not necessarily enough of a reason to start to question or deny specific things as far as like just personal beliefs are concerned, because it's like, why would you let someone else's sins and someone else's decisions impact yourself? At least that's just
like
always been
if somebody I don't know, drinks so much and becomes an alcoholic, that doesn't mean nobody else can drink. This is a terrible example, I think. I don't know.
No, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because something that some people may not know about me is I'm straight edge. I don't drink. I don't do. That's why it was funny with the CBD promo, because I was like, I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't.
CBD doesn't get you high.
Is that the? So it's like, I know there's like 2 chemicals.
There's THC and there's CBD, and then the CBD is like, the THC is what gets you high.
Yeah, that's what I figured, because I know that CBD oil is the one thing that a lot of people use for like arthritis and stuff. It's shown to have some
CBD
benefits.
is in everything now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So, but yeah. So I've been straight edge, like I guess formally since I was actually 21. Because for most of my life I was, but I remember in college, I've never been drunk. The closest and the most
Never.
alcohol, never been drunk. No. The closest that I ever did, the most alcohol I ever consumed, it was on my first year in college. We went to I think we went to it was like a Japanese restaurant, but we went to I guess one of these places where they didn't card, and so we got sake bombs. And
Yeah, there was a
so,
pee boy, and they were like, "Open up!" Da, 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 da. I love that part so much that my friend actually got this for me for my birthday.
That's crazy.
And you're like, "It's just a little pee boy full of sake. How could you say no?" Ah.
So I had half of a sake bomb. That's the most
Ooh,
alcohol I've
okay.
ever had in my life.
Okay.
So.
And you're not feeling the desire. You're not feeling like, eh. But you know what drives that is you're looking for an escape. You're looking for like to detach from something in your life. You're like you have stress or anxiety or pressure, or you're trying to avoid something, and then that's what makes alcohol attractive to people. So if you're just, I'm sure you're just constantly just facing your shit all the time. Ugh, how boring.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously there are some, there's just like with denominations, right? There's different levels of people who are straight edge. Like there's some that are straight edge enough to where they will not have any caffeine either. I'm not to that extreme. For me, it's specifically alcohol, illegal drugs, and anything that has an impact that essentially is the way we word it in moral theology. Anything that darkens the mind or intellect is essentially some stuff that I avoid. So because the church is Catholic Church is not against drinking. It's not against these things. It's more of that's more of my own personal choice. And yeah, as you kind of indicated, yeah, I just never really understood it. Smoking was actually one where early on in my life I kind of had very much against it because my dad smoked a lot, and never when we were growing up, because he quit right before my sister was born, the first of my siblings to be born. He quit, and one of the things though that I grew up with was he couldn't smell. He had no sense of smell.
So he was patient zero of COVID. He was like, I can never taste and smell.
He's like, I may not understand what it's like to lose from COVID, but I understand what it's like to lose it from smoking.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was an example to me of like, oh, why? Oh, okay. And then my grandfather, my pawpaw, he passed away from emphysema after years and years of smoking. So, early on, I was like, okay, I'm never smoking. Like I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, and a lot of it's because of those influences. And then for alcohol, for me, I was looking around, and obviously, I grew up in a family where my dad drank. It was just a common thing. My mom and dad would always have wine with dinner, that kind of stuff. But I just never really understood it, because I tried stuff and I was like, this is disgusting. Like I would try a sip of this or that, and I'm like, okay, I don't understand why people enjoy this. This doesn't taste good. And the explanation I always got was, well, you get used to it. I'm like, why would I want to struggle through something just to get used to it? Like, what are you talking about?
Part of being an adult, Odin. You get used to taxes. You get used to alcohol. You get used to anal. No, not me. Not me on that last one. Still holding out. Still waiting for my wedding day. It's just the first thing I thought of.
First thing that pops. Well, it's the mind of a comedian, right? It's just like first things that pop in your head.
Just keeping it. Just going for the low hanging fruit. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh man, I like talking about religious stuff with you. I feel like most people, I don't know, it's a topic that people are a little bit still like, it's people are unable to see like how it affects them, and I think if they were to kind of try to get closer to God, they would be happier, and I think being focused on your goals and then you just kind of be like, all right, you're gonna show me the way, like this is what I want, I'm gonna work as hard as I can to get it, but like I know it may not go in a straight line, and I think it would help people be easier on themselves.
Yeah, and I think also too, there's a perception, right, of what people see and what people read and hear, and then there's this aspect of relationship, because you can know all the history, you can know everything, but without that personal relationship, that's the crux of faith. and that's why, this is something that I've always been very, very prominent on, because if anyone follows me, you know that I'm what I would call a very traditional Catholic. So I'm very much into, a lot of pre-Vatican II rituals. So, we used to
Seven
have
fishes. That's all I know.
the 7 fishes.
On
Yeah,
Christmas Eve.
absolutely. That's an old school Advent and Christmas. That's
What's with the 7 fishes? What,
So,
like,
yeah,
and
that's
why
actually
can't
new to
you
me.
repeat a fish?
So for me, that's actually new for me to understand, because I just this year practiced more traditional Advent practices. That's why Friday Night Tights, everyone freaked out because I was doing Meatless Fridays, and they were like, "What do you mean you don't have pepperoni? What's going on?
Who are you?
Who are you? Who is this person?" And but one of the things that I found out was another traditional Advent fast was actually the seven fish. And so essentially it was because it was not considered flesh meat, right? It was not considered to be actual meat, and so therefore you would cook these fish, and it would be a part of essentially this fasting from different meals, and this would be a part of the big meal you would have. And so that's what I'm still learning a lot about. But basically the fish aspect comes from the fact that it's not meat, and so, or not considered meat at the very least.
Totally. The first time my Italian boyfriend brought me over for Christmas Eve, he said, "Chrissy, you're the 7th fish." No. That's terrible. All right.
That's interesting.
Gross. I
The
shower.
7 fish.
Yeah.
7 fish.
Jay
to rule them all.
Jay Bama. Fan, humble, braggart. Odin, the last minute fill-in of guests. Odin is not a last minute. Well, we did set this up yesterday, but
Yes.
I did have a governor that canceled on me. I was supposed to do an interview with Andrew Giuliani, and he blew me off. I might reschedule with him next week or something.
Is he an actual governor now?
No, he's going to be running for governor.
Okay.
Yeah, of New York.
Where's he? New York. Oh,
Yeah.
Good luck.
Whoo! Like, I don't know who wants to rule over this shithole, but good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck to you guys. From Young Pei Chang, happy Whiskey Wednesday, guys. Well, Odin doesn't drink Young Pei, so.
But Chrissy, you can absolutely enjoy the whiskey.
I'm not into brown liquids. I'm not into brown alcohols. I've always been like a vodka girl.
Okay. So just for alcohol or for all beverages? Like, would you shut out, for instance, you're not into Coke or Diet Coke or Pepsi or anything?
No,
Like all that Sprite or
into soda.
Okay.
My mom, I feel like there's a big correlation between like my mom getting brain cancer and the amount of Tab she drank. She kept Tab in business throughout the 80s and 90s. So I'm just like,
Oh,
yeah,
Lord.
let me try to like not drink soda. Like,
Yeah.
like that really.
I was
turned me
big
off
into
of it.
soda for a long time, and it was actually because another thing some people know, I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, and so I went through my
Orleans.
junior.
Odin eating the crawdad.
Eating the crawdaddy, eating the crawfish, yeah.
Oh, Odin, where do you get your shoes?
So during but I was a junior.
New Orleans, that's an old New Orleans trick, by the way. If you ever go to New Orleans and somebody asks you, where did you get your shoes?
Yeah.
They're trying to trick you, even though it's fucking dumb and it actually makes no sense. Like you'll say, oh, Brooks Brothers, whatever, DSW. And be like, no, you didn't. You got them on your feet. Now pay up, asshole. And you're like, then they're hustling you for money. And you're like, what?
Leave me alone.
Ignore all those people. Just pretend you're in New York City and just walk past everyone.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I'm so glad to not be, because my own situation, as far as my own job situation, as crazy as it is and as awful as it is, New Orleans is a city. They've got so much nonsense going on. Because imagine being in a city known for like partying and everything, where you're trying to implement mandates. It's like
it was crazy. I was there in August when
Yeah.
the implements finally came down. Like I had this trip planned. It was the last day or two that they were suddenly like, sorry, you need vax papers to go into restaurants. And I'm like, I'm there with my boyfriend and his 10-year-old son. And I'm like, what are we gonna fucking do? And then we just ended up, there was a spot called Daisy Dukes and they were chill and they were like not asking. So we just like ate there for every meal, and they were good. They had like good food. It was like what you would expect at New Orleans, like just good Southern whatevers.
Yeah. And those are the businesses that need to be supported, are the ones that are like, yeah, we're going to follow them, but we're not actually going to follow them because we still want business. We still would like to make money.
Yeah. It's very scary. And then they're like, there's a line, and I'm dealing with this now, I think, in comedy in New York. There's this kind of debate over like, the lines get blurry. Like, you don't support these mandates, but let's say you don't want your buddy's business to go under either. And they're kind of like quietly not enforcing it. So are you going to then protest this business like you would a business who is like all about enforcing it, and they have all their flyers hanging up and they're like, very harsh about it? But I find like I'm probably just saving a lot of money, like not going to restaurants in New York City anymore. Like, but I've gone to bagel shops, I've gone to like delis and stuff. Nobody asks you at these places, and it's good because I'm saving money and I'm not like a bougie chick. So it's like.
Well, also, and I lived in New York for 4 years for college, actually, and
Where did you go?
Fordham.
Fordham. I was at
Fordham.
Fairfield. I looked at Fordham, and I was like, part of me was like, I really want to go because it's FU. I can say FU for 4 years.
Literally
that
at
gives
the
you
games.
a sense of my mental state. Yeah.
I know, right? You would have had so much fun at the football games because even though our team was terrible, literally the chant section was always FU, 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 FU,
Wow.
FU, FU. Yep.
And Fordham was also Jesuit.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So is Fairfield. I was like, what? I don't know.
Yeah, I went in expecting to go to a Catholic university and then found out, oh, no, wait, I'm at a Jesuit university. And unfortunately, there's a difference. Yeah, there's a big difference between the two. But no, what I was going to say is one of the benefits of being in New York City, especially if you're in New York City proper, is you got tons of street merchants. You got tons of the street food vendors. And I remember getting the halal and the hero. Oh, my goodness. That was my jam. That was always my jam.
Wow, so you were an eater of street meat.
I loved it, yeah.
Yeah, can't get enough.
Can't get enough.
Hear that, boys? Mr. Butt.
Let's say I knew there was another meeting there.
$1.99. Thanks for the super sticker. Oh Lord, this is quite the super chat from Jack Murphy's Soy Snatch. I thought we were going to maybe avoid this topic today. What's your advice on how to manage the progressiveness of modern day life with your religious beliefs? And Chrissy, is Odin aware of that stream with Destiny? If so, what are his thoughts? Okay, so this is like a two-parter.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the stream with Destiny, so
there is this progressive, like, and I'm not like into the Twitch world. Like we're streaming to Twitch right now. I don't know what's happening over there. I don't really go over there, but I know it's a place. And this guy Destiny is like a super progressive. I guess he's like a far left with like a big cult following.
Yeah.
And it was we had like a CMP, which is like the podcast I do with like all girls. It was like me, Brittany Venti, Lauren Southern, Ashton Birdie, and Leanne Starr. So it was us girls talking for a while, and then we left to go to, it was the same crew though. We went to go to Lauren's stream or whatever. This was Sunday, and she brought in this guy Destiny, and I don't know how we got there, but we ended up all debating about people who are attracted to minors, and like we all got mad and fired up, and like Brittany was screaming at this guy, and plus we were all like drinking. It was nuts. We did my Simpcast for 4 hours, and then we did Lauren's show for like 3 hours. This went to like 3 something in the morning. It was insane. But we all got so fired up at this guy because in my mind, like he was like if you sympathize with these people, if you like have yourself on the track to start doing mental gymnastics for like why it's okay, even if you're approaching from this angle, oh, I want to help them, I want to make sure less children are abused, and you see the arguments that these people start to make, and you're like, normal people don't think this way. Normal people don't compare being a pedo to having just a little bit of alcohol. You'll start seeing like, and I wanted to make a bingo card of like pedo talking points. Like one is like, oh, just because you have a little alcohol, does that mean you're an alcoholic? And they start doing these arguments that try to get somebody to sympathize and normalize with it and make it seem less bad. And I was like, wow. I was like, I've been alive 38 years. I'm on the internet a lot. I have all kinds of friends. I've never heard anybody make the arguments that these, and then another girl named Stardust came on. I never heard anybody make the arguments that these guys are making about like, oh, so should we just off anybody who is a victim of this? Because the victims often, turn into predators themselves. Like they were making this argument like, oh, so if a child is a victim of abuse, should we just kill them because they might end up to be predators themselves? Like they start making these arguments that put you up against a wall. They want you to say, oh no, of course we have to be, empathetic to them and care for them, and then like see, and then that's how they get you into like sympathizing for
Which
them.
is insane, because you would say, like, why would you even jump to that conclusion? Because the clear answer there is no. I would make sure that they go to therapy, because they're going to need it, and they're probably going to need it their entire
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Is like, is that such an odd concept? You know, it's just so insane that, you know, because it's one thing, because like, you know, obviously, like, just from a Christian understanding, you know, you don't ever want to just say like you're cut off, like someone is done for life, right? But at the same time, it's like no, like we need to recognize that there is an illness, that there is a mental illness, a mental sickness here that needs to be addressed. It does not mean that we just, you know, throw this person away if they haven't done anything, right? It means that no, like we empathize as far as you're a human being who has a mental illness and you need help. You don't say, oh, we're going to empathize with you to the point of it being acceptance. That's a different thing, right?
He was also saying, oh, you know, people are born being, you don't have control over what you're born being attracted to. And I was like, I don't feel like people are born.
No. Well, they're not. I mean,
and these people compare it to born being gay, which is also often caused by trauma. I'm not, you know.
Well, no,
not
like, not getting into that. Not getting into that can of worms. But I will say, like, because this is also a subject that comes up with my students, and the way I always word it is, every one of y'all in here right now, all of you have a type, right? Yeah, you know, we have a type. Okay, where does that come from? And it's like, is it something that you're born with, or is it something that is a multifaceted, multi-layered like thing, right? Where the part of it could be genetics, but also a lot of it could be the interactions that you've had in your entire life. As you said, sometimes it can be cases of abuse or cases of trauma in one's life. All of these things, right? Thousands upon thousands of things that impact us on a daily basis. That is what oftentimes leads to them. However, what that also means is that there are going to be some healthy attractions that can develop from that, and there's going to be some unhealthy attractions that can develop from that. In the case of these people who, again, can oftentimes, you know, be led to abusing children, then obviously that is an incredibly unhealthy attraction that needs to be absolutely addressed. And also, it's important to be clear as well, right, that we can't, we can't treat people that haven't done anything the same as people who have done something. Right, because obviously in one case there's a clear criminal, so it's not even just that they need help mentally. They also need, you know, to be prosecuted.
Yeah, you could make the case that all people are pre-criminal, that all people are, all of us haven't done anything yet, but keep an eye out. So, and another point was that both this Destiny and the Stardust chick, they both knew so many statistics around like this pedo life and stats of children and coming of age and development, and then I'm like talking to my boyfriend Frank about it. He's like, yeah, that's also another red flag. He's like, because I really love baseball, I know a ton of baseball stats because I'm really into baseball and I love it. Why do they know all these stats? You know what I mean? Like, have they been abused? Is that why they're trying to make sense of their world? The same way you'd Google a rash, the same way you'd be like, oh, this is happening to me, I'm living in this, I'm having these thoughts and feelings, let me research it more. So it's I would just rather people be upfront and be like, oh, hey, like I was molested and I have these feelings and this is how I'm dealing with it, instead of being like, oh, you guys are so stupid. Like, especially this Destiny guy takes the case of like, if he's hearing a point he doesn't like, he pretends the other people or the person saying it is so stupid and isn't on their level intellectually, and like, I don't know. It was
and by the way, because I see some people are like, you're like, are you comparing this to this? It's like, no, what I'm saying is that, as I said, like there are, you know, healthy attractions, which again, there can be differences of opinion on, but then there's also unhealthy attractions that develop through time and through various things. And it's the unhealthy ones in this specific case, you know, that can lead to the abuse of children, that those are the ones that need to, again, if someone's done something, be prosecuted. And then for those that haven't done anything, you know, try and get that person help, because that, again, unhealthy attraction to potentially lead that person to abuse a minor, especially, that's something that needs to be addressed. So just to clear that up, because some people are trying to, you know, twist the words to say, or you're saying that it's the same to be, you know, if you're this, that's the same to be that. No, it's not. That's the whole point of what we're saying here. You know?
Right. Like there are examples of people who date someone who's very bad for them and very unhealthy and toxic, but because they remind them of their father who has these same traits, same thing. Like, oh, you date someone who reminds you of your mom because she also ignored you. And like, so our experiences can lead to attractions for types and people that are not the best. There's a reason for it, but that doesn't mean it's good. it's good for those involved.
Yeah. And also there is an element of, as I said, like there's that element of attraction that develops, but also there is an aspect of choice because you choose whether to act upon the attractions that exist. And so again, that's another important aspect of it as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you answered the part on managing the progressiveness of modern day life with your religious beliefs.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's like, I'm trying to see like what the specific question is because I reject progressiveness just in my everyday life. And so it's pretty easy to do that. And when I see it being, brought into or trying to be brought into or infiltrated into the faith, I obviously reject that and try and fight against that to the best of my ability as well. But yeah, I mean, that's really the only way I can think about answering it.
Johan Naxos. Odin, can you please explain oh boy.
I like this follow-up though. Oh wait, the wrong bald guy.
Article. Wait, wrong bald guy with a beard. Hail Odin. Hail Queen Chrissy. Hail Damien of Kangaroo Land. Oh boy.
All I'll say is that the original article, like being referenced there, is incredibly messed up, and is not cool.
I'm hearing a lot, and it had been paid to be removed from the internet. But then we have the good old Wayback Machine, and then I don't know. I feel like it's it's harsh. It's a little bit of a dumpster fire. Mm-hmm. Ryan's leftover jizz stain. Who is your favorite pope? I know it's not the current individual. Mine's John Paul II. I've heard a lot of talk that the current pope is the fake pope, or the last pope was the last real pope, and
oh yeah. So, fun word for people who maybe don't follow this. That's understood as what we call sede vacantism.
Ooh.
Fun word. Yeah. It means vacant seat is essentially what it means. So there are some that believe that Pope Francis is not a legitimate pope. They believe, there's different elements of it, right? There's some that believe Pope Benedict XVI, who was the last pope who is still alive, that he is still pope. There's some that believe that there hasn't been a valid pope since Pope Pius XII back in, the early 20th century. There's different elements of this. So I've never fallen into that personally. But what I can say as far as the answer to the question, and it's interesting, I'm just, the fact that it's that name asking this question, just my mind is like, what? But probably if I had to pick a favorite, probably would go to Pope St. Pius X, because he's one of the last popes to speak incredibly clearly on various issues, and also very much against modernism, which is something that we're seeing creep into the church and been creeping into the church for a long time.
Okay, cool. Wow, I don't even have a favorite pope. I have to look into them. Mm-hmm. Boricquadamus, shout out to Odin's beard. Alpha beard. Let's go chop down some trees and build a boat. No homo. Prove it.
Let's build the boat, man.
Let's build it. 2 of each animal. Let's do it. Young Pei Ching. I'm not an FNT guy, but Mr. O is salt of the earth. Why aren't you an FNT guy, Young Pei?
You should join.
You should. You come on. If you like me, you're gonna like FNT was before my time.
Now, this is the most that you'll ever hear me speak, probably, outside of my own channel, because there's a lot of strong personalities on FNT, so sometimes it's hard to get a word in, but it's a great community.
It is, and I felt prepared for that because comedians are the same way, and it's like, yeah, it's a lot of strong personalities, and especially if you think what you're about to say is hilarious, you're even more motivated to jump in there and get it, but you have to be used to that. We all interrupt each other. You can't take it personally. It's all good. How did you get linked up into the FNT squad?
Yeah. So going into a little bit, I guess, of kind of the foundation of the channel that kind of led to that. So back in, I guess now 2018, it's just crazy to think about. It's been about 3 years plus now that, since the birth of my channel, I had always wanted to do movie reviews because I always loved talking about movies. And so I started off just doing written reviews in a very informal way, then decided to start doing podcast editions of movie reviews, and then decided to start filming those. And around that time, I discovered Geeks and Gamers, and I started seeing Jeremy talking like a normal person without it being cleanly cut, right? Not reading off a script, right? Not incredibly polished. I'm like, this is a normal guy, and he's
Wait,
just
so
speaking
you
his
liked
mind.
that it wasn't super cut up?
I
Because a
loved it.
lot of YouTube style, and I feel like the YouTube style
Yeah.
that is very successful is very, very cut. A lot of jump cuts. All of the extra words and ums and pauses are taken out. And then I go, oh shit, do I have to be like that? I fucking can't edit. So here I am. Nothing's edited.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And so decision. Yeah, I saw that and I was just like, he's just a regular everyday person, you know, saying these things. And so it kind of inspired me to start doing the same. And so I started my own channel, started live streaming, not just, you know, a few months later. By the end of the year, I was, you know, from the beginning, I started doing box office stuff. Because I found a lot of interest in it, and it was when Solo: A Star Wars Story came out, and so there was a lot of talk about the box office for it, and I was looking into it, researching it, and I was like discovering, oh, this movie is a big financial loss. Like, there's a lot of problems going on with this, and it's not being talked about. So one of my first videos was actually calling out John Campea. So very early on in my YouTube career, I was calling out John Campea because he was just shilling for the movie and was just saying things that were just not true. And so, you know, fell into that, did box office. And then in my box office discussions, I was also constantly tagging, you know, in a way harassing Jeremy. I was always tagging him in, you know, my box office videos, being like, you know, hey, could you give me any advice? And eventually he was like, hey, I really like your stuff. Would you like to do box office stuff for the channel? I'm like, yeah, sure. So got involved with Geeks and Gamers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got involved with Geeks and Gamers. And then they, of course, you know, through the history of Geeks and Gamers, eventually there was something known as the High Council that developed from that, you know, dealing specifically with Star Wars. Eventually the High Council fell apart. And in the High Council falling apart, there was this void. And so once this void was there, I reached out to Gary, and I was saying to myself, you know, I was saying to Gary, I was like, hey, Gary, I already know, because through that process, I had discovered Gary and had discovered Nerdrotic and was listening to all his videos and his streams. And I was like, I know that you already do a stream on Fridays. And now that, you know, there's this void that's been left, right? Because now that the High Council's kind of fallen apart, there's this void here. And I think there's a lot of people that would really love to watch a show. And so I reached out to him with that. And he said, yeah, you know, I've definitely been hearing this from other people, but thank you for bringing this idea. And so basically just by the fact that I brought that up put me into the discussion. So when the panel was being discussed, I was one of the OG members because it was in a way part of this brainchild of, you know, there's not one person that really determined, you know, the show specifically, right? There's not one person who said, we're going to make a show.
It sounds like it was your idea, Odin.
And it's not. And I just want to make that very, very clear because I was one of the many sparks. I was one of the many sparks, one of the many layers that led to it being brought onto it. And so that's how I got involved. And so I was on the original panel and still to this day, enjoying it, having a lot of fun with it. So
wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you feel like is because you talk a lot of your videos deal with stats and numbers, and I think you're like a numbers guy. You really love to look at, which is great because I start looking at numbers and I immediately check out. Do you feel like what is going to be the ripple effect of the success of Spider-Man? Do you think this is basically a message to everyone, like, hey, this film was not as woke. Like, even I was just seeing this article today that let's see, Aunt May's character, Marissa Tomei,
she said that she wanted the character to be gay.
She wanted the character to be gay, and like nobody liked that idea. Yeah, I felt that she should just be with a woman. Marissa Tomei reveals that she pushed for her Spider-Man character to embark on a lesbian relationship. Like, what? Just because somebody died? I mean, what happened? She broke up with the uncle.
Happy.
Yeah. So is she saying that, like, yeah, well, just because it doesn't work out with this dude, that means you have to, like, I don't know. That's not the way it goes.
No. And it's weird because, like, it just seems like it's just such pandering with that. It's like, oh, well, hey, there's this void now. Why not just do this? Well, why would we do that? There's no basis for this. There's no history for this whatsoever. And it's like, why not? You know, it's basically, let's try and put, representation in for the sake of representation. It's like, that's not a good enough reason to create or to add elements to a story. And I think that's why the film has been as successful as it has, is there's a lot of factors. You know, some people will definitely try and say that it's because it's not woke that's why it's successful. But let's be honest, it's because of a lot of things. That's a part of it. That's absolutely a part of it. You know, that's a part of the equation. It's also the fact that it is a film that people have been waiting for because of the characters that are involved in it, because of the actors that are involved in it, and what it means for them, and kind of the arcs and the conclusions, or I guess justifications. There's another word I'm looking for. I guess redemption is the best word. You know, redemption of certain characters, because certain characters in the film are featured in other films in Sony's history, and they're not very good. So this is a redemption for them in a lot of ways. So I think that the rumors and not knowing if the rumors were true, all of that, I think, really built up to this being the biggest. And also, you know, we know this, right, from the lockdowns and from all these measures that have been implemented, right, that there was this powder keg. Like, people were wanting to be, I want a reason to leave my house. I want a reason to go out with my friends. I want a reason to do this. And this was finally like that powder keg moment that people were finally like, boom, let's go out.
Yeah. Here is a little clip of her.
This is Dorian with Geeks of Color. So first of all, Marissa, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me.
Oh, this is 3 minutes long.
It's truly an honor to be speaking with you right now.
And is this channeling Geeks of Color?
Is that what this is called?
It sounded like he said of Geeks of Color.
Hold the phone. Let's try it again.
Marissa, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time. It is truly an honor to be speaking with you right now.
Thank you for your time.
Is there in the beginning?
Wait. At the
this
beginning.
is Dorian with Geeks of Color. So
Geeks of Color.
Geeks of Color.
Geeks of Color, Odin.
So that to me would actually, to be honest, it sounds like she was on a show that is already, you know, geared towards a certain agenda items. And so basically, you know how this happens sometimes where someone will say something in an interview and then people like, you know, spread that one line all over the internet, and then people forget about full context and all these other, so it's like, okay, basically it was already being set up for something like that to be said.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Speaking of hearing one line and then pushing it as truth, this is just what came out too. Was Joe Rogan was just on talking about who would win, like who would run, who would, and he just said, I believe if she runs, she wins. Joe Rogan backs. They're making it look like he backs former lady Michelle Obama to win against Trump. It's like he's just saying, Michelle Obama could win. He's not saying I back her. She's got my seal of approval and my vote. He also said that like DeSantis and Trump would make a power couple together, like a super team. So
also notice how it says only if she doesn't back mandates and lockdowns.
Yeah, right.
So basically it would need to be her, and it would need to be a very different version of the party right now, basically. And I honestly, and obviously that's also, it's his opinion. It's his opinion on what he thinks would happen, because I think that there's a good argument to be made that if it was like her versus DeSantis and they were both against lockdowns, etc., she hasn't been involved in political life at all and hasn't proven herself at all, whereas DeSantis as a governor has proven that he actually would do the things that he says that he was going to do. So I think that would probably lead to it being it would definitely be still a close election, because that's just the nature of our politics now. We're so, you know, divided in ways, and there's a lot of tribalism and politicization. But yeah, it's amazing people are taking this out of context to say that he's endorsing her. It's like, no, he's saying if this were to happen and if she were to hold these specific items, then maybe she could win.
It's because people know if you mention Joe Rogan's name, you're going to have a successful article. You're going to get clicks, and they can take anything he says or doesn't say and make it and fluff it up into a whole article.
Yep, absolutely. And obviously they don't want to, it's amazing how, you know, they'll get him trending on that. They'll get him trending when he talks about his treatment, but they'll kind of blacklist him a bit when, again, going back to the Dr. Peter McCullough episode where he's going through all the stats and everything. And, you know, it got the rounds, but mainstream media didn't really cover it, except maybe to mention, oh yeah, he had a conspiracy theorist. He had a blank denier on, right? It's just nonsense.
It is nonsense, Odin. Thank God we exist. Make sense of it all.
Seriously.
I didn't mean for that to sound condescending, but that's how it came out. Okay. Gabriel Knight. Christy, any future plans to have a show in the Louisville or Cincinnati area? Yeah, I would go there. I was in Ohio this year. I think I was in Cleveland. I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame briefly. I traveled around on a bird scooter. I had a blast. So, yeah. Well, didn't Louisville? Oh man, didn't you guys get wrecked by the tornado?
I think they did. Yeah, because there was Yeah, there was a series of storms that came through, and I'm not too close to Louisville myself because I'm at the south end. I'm in the Chattanooga area of Tennessee. But I know that I have one of my mods, Tina, the Empress of the Universe, as we like to call her.
Wow.
She is in that area, and so I know that there was a lot of concern because there's other people that are in proximity, other followers that are in proximity of that. And so I was getting updates on it, and it affected specific areas pretty badly. But yeah, there were some tornadoes going on.
That was nuts. That was nuts. Like, I was watching, and I got into this corner of the internet of people who cover tornadoes, and like I think a lot of these guys are autistic or like have something wrong with them, which is fine. And it's probably a strength for, you have to deal with numbers and chasing tornadoes and shit, and like watching them like yell and scream like, oh my God. It was just like a couple hours of us watching the stream of like these guys going, oh my God, oh no, the horror. And then
So were they actual storm chasers on the ground, or?
They were just like professional. I don't know if anybody in the chat knows what I'm talking about. Like professional followers and trackers of tornadoes. I don't know that they themselves were like doing it live from a car. And then at one point, one guy's like, all right, I gotta go pretty soon. Like, I'm in the path of the tornado. And we're like, buddy, you shouldn't be on this stream. Like, you're so committed to it had the vibes of like the musicians on the Titanic going down with the ship. Like, oh, all right, so it's me, Ricky, signing off. And they're like, how far away are you? Like, yeah, pretty close. We're like, oh no.
Yeah, because actually, part of me always found it interesting with actual storm chase. Because that to me is, I'm like, that's an odd thing. People commenting on videos from like a safe place and a safe distance. Whereas you watch a movie like Twister, and you're like, oh, there are people that do this, right? And you have, oh my goodness, Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's in that movie, and he's just this great character, right? Yeah. So funny.
Oh, so
losers
good.
go that way, right? Like just all this.
Yeah.
And part of me was always kind of been interested in storm chasing because I'm like, that looks like fun. I'm an adrenaline junkie, so I love.
Like, oh, you are, huh?
I love coasters.
An adrenaline junkie who doesn't drink or do drugs.
No, but I do roller coasters.
Yeah. Do you have a motorcycle? Would you do that?
I would love to try. However,
the wife.
Happy wife, happy life.
Happy wife. Do you have a happy wife, happy life pillow in your house somewhere?
I probably should because I definitely say it enough.
You're like, I'm wearing a shirt right now that says it. That's pretty cool though. Yeah, rides are fun. And you gotta get your I think as long as you are behind the tornado, you're fine. But it's just figuring, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just taking upskirts. I don't know. Of the tornado. I see all these pictures of like, oh, you got to catch it with the sun. The best pictures of tornadoes are the ones where the sun is like right on it, because if the sun's behind it, it's all dark and it's not as good of a photo.
Well, I mean, because you can track them, right? You can see where the movements are going, where the currents are going. So those with the skill to do it can absolutely do it and do it relatively safely as well. I mean, I don't hear about a lot of tornado chasers dying in a given year, interestingly enough.
But maybe that's just because, like, I mean, we don't hear about a lot of stuff. I think
true.
I don't think the media cares about tornado chasers the way they should.
Maybe we should have, instead of a ticker, about COVID deaths, maybe we should have a ticker for storm chaser deaths, because let's be honest, there's probably more.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. From Holy Fook, I know you are all still loving Spider-Man, but you should go see The King's Man. It's pure escapism. Oh, I have not even heard of The King's Man.
Yeah, it's have you heard of the Kingsman series?
Yeah. No, I haven't.
Okay, so it's a part of the Kingsman series, but it's a prequel, and the trailers look good, but I've heard mixed things about it.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that Mendelsohn guy earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel, because we are aware that many of our journalists are kind of compromised, they're bought, their pockets are lined by a particular group, and that's what they're reporting favors. Do you find that is the same case with movie reviewers? Because I was personally very shocked to see, I was watching a lot of Grace Randolph for doing my impression of her, and her Ghostbusters review, she was like, and this review is sponsored by Ghostbusters. I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, how could this be honest at this point?
I didn't even know that she had a that's great. Yeah. Gary was the one that actually uncovered it a while back. He found this, it was a sci-fi channel podcast episode, and one of the persons on the podcast was like one of the Rotten Tomatoes certified reviewers, and he basically kind of let the cat out of the bag. because he admitted that, oh yeah, when they give us these access, that's where the whole, concept access media comes from, right? When they give us this early access and they go ahead and let us see the film, and then there's, typically goodie bags that we get as well, right? There's, memorabilia and stuff, that it definitely has an impact, right, on our experience. And so it's basically saying that we're more, he admits that we're more likely to give a more positive rating or a more positive review to a film when there are these other elements that are part of it. So yeah, if they're not totally bought off, then they're at the very least influenced. I mean, I still remember John Campia's instant review of Shang-Chi. Like, he's there, everyone has like their goodie bags in the background.
Oh,
he's like,
God.
I just came out of Shang-Chi and it was effing awesome. And it was like, yeah, because I'm going to take your opinion seriously as you have your free stuff in your hand.
Got a Shang-Chi mink coat on, a Shang-Chi crown. He has like a Shang-Chi, personal masseuse.
I know, right? He's got the guy right next to him, like
his Shang-Chi fleshlight. Oh, it was a great movie. I had so much fun.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, do you find there's a lot of people like that in the movie reviewing scene?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's
like
why
more than there are honest guys like you who are just watching and
yeah, and it's hard to find someone these days who is, because if you don't have, if you're not seen as a legitimate critic, which for me is whatever, it's almost like you don't count in a way. So there's very few people that I feel like can even really be trusted. So like I go to people like, for instance, Jeremy Johns, who I don't agree with all the time. He just put his top 10 list out, and his #1 film of the year was The Snyder Cut, which I hated. So, it's like, I was like, darn you. But he's someone that he's a very much regular, everyday kind of guy. And so he is able to put out reviews where it's like, I feel like you're being trustworthy and honest. And he's got sponsors, but it's always like Skillshare or one of those places where it's not going to really influence his opinion on films. So like him. And then I work with John Flickinger. I don't know if you've heard of him, the Flick Pick, but he's this guy. I've always loved his videos, since, for years I've been watching him. But like, he's like this bodybuilder type, but he's a movie nerd. It's hilarious.
Oh, cool.
And so we've been doing a podcast together actually for Patreon and Subscribestar, for my Patreon, Subscribestar for his Patreon. We do one show for his and one show for mine. And he's another person that I trust on a lot of videos too, because he's, again, someone that's a regular everyday guy, but he is not really in the pocket of any specific film or studio.
And isn't that the struggle for everybody? Like, we all start small. And then before you know it, you're Joe Rogan and you're getting $100 million in a Spotify deal. So I think that's why I don't know, I respect Joe Rogan when he cancels a show because of the mandates. And it must be hard. Honestly, you don't know till you're in that position. Same people who are like, Trump didn't do everything we wanted him to do. And it's like, you don't know who's around him. You don't know I don't know.
Yeah. Well, especially Rogan. I mean, think about the millions of dollars that have been lost from that,
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. It's well, we'll know when we blow up and become uber successful, Odin. We'll do another podcast and we'll talk about rich people problems. From Mikey Gessler, I remember all of the shilling from the Collider crew for the Solo movie, fans not giving it a chance, which led to Last Jedi again.
I do as well. There was so much shilling that happened for that film, and it was to the extreme where they couldn't even admit the faults, because like I think that people can be having, it's one of those things where, and that's why I love, some people have been mentioning Mahler. I think he's another great reviewer, because the thing that Mahler has made like sexy again, I guess you could say, is that there's a difference between objectivity and subjectivity, where he's been able to say, I enjoyed this movie, but there's some objective problems and let's break those down. And I think that that's the issue that a lot of these reviewers have, is they fall into this, trap of basically tearing down people because of the fact that there are objective issues and that subjectively they didn't enjoy it either, so much that they literally try to gloss over like that there are no real objective issues at all. It's ridiculous.
So do you feel like there's pressure on some movie reviewers to feel like, okay, this is all bad or all good, and there's not enough people kind of in the middle?
There's not enough people like Mahler. That's what, and you can take that quote to the bank, right? But it's true. There's not enough people like Mahler who can differentiate between objective and subjective. It's hard, right? It's hard to do, right? Because if you enjoy an experience with a movie and you love a character or you love a director, right? It's sometimes hard to separate those two things out. Or if you are someone like a John Campea or Collider and you get access to something and you get free stuff and everything, it can be hard to give a truly objective review. And the issue too with those people is that they are literally being paid to give reviews and are being sought after to get honest reviews from. And so people expect them to be objective, right? People expect them to be more objective than subjective. But I think what Mahler has really helped to kind of expose is how so many times there's films that really have a lot of problems but don't. The one other thing I will say, and it's weird because it comes from Screen Rant. Have you ever heard of the pitch meeting videos?
Yes. Yeah, with those two annoying guys, or it's one guy.
It's one guy, he keeps cutting back and forth. So you got a movie for me?
Turns on every time he wants me to focus on work because I find them so fucking annoying. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the look or the sound.
Wow.
But he puts that on every time. I know that he wants me to stop watching TV and do work and it's just I get easily distraction. He puts that on. I'm like, okay, see you later.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience. I love that. I love that guy. I love this. But that's another example too, because he tears apart everything. So even good films or films that people enjoy, he just goes down the line and points out all of the problems and issues, saying, wait a minute, but doesn't that mean this? Don't think about it. Don't think about it.
Yeah.
And it's sad that it's on Screen Rant, because it's the only good thing that really can be found there.
No, he's growing on me slowly, but
yeah.
I know he does quality videos. From the 76 Wild Man, Odin, do you watch current TV or have a favorite show? Will Batwoman cause Az to have a mental breakdown? Hail Odin and hail Chrissie.
I fear the answer might be yes, that second question, because I feel like it's been very damaging to his mental psyche, and there's no question about it. For modern shows, I'm trying to think, because I guess for current TV it means shows that are still, I guess, on and still being shown. So I guess I still like Stranger Things, I guess, because that's one that's still technically going on.
Nostalgia slightly, but I like it. I like seeing.
Yeah, every season has
visuals.
gotten, I think, a little bit worse. The first season's just so good, and the rest it's kind of falling off a bit. But actually, I discovered a show after recommendation from Matthew Kadish and the Salty Nerd podcast crew. They're ones that are actually trying to get certified on Rotten Tomatoes, because one of the ways you can do that is having a certain number of 5-star reviews on iTunes, which I think also should kind of indicate, again, some of the issues with Rotten Tomatoes and the way that they handle their scoring. But they recommended a show called Mythic Quest. And it's now on Apple TV. Unfortunately, it's behind that paywall. But Mythic Quest was fantastic. They had a pandemic episode actually that was all done via Zoom meeting.
Ooh.
And it was brilliant how they handled it. It was one of the most well done. Yeah,
that's neat. That seems like a reflection of the actual times.
Yeah. Well, what I loved about it is there's this moment where they could have easily gone into simping for the government and lockdowns and things like that. But they actually have this moment in this comedy, of all things. Again, it's hilarious because it's a comedy. But then there's also these really great dramatic moments in it, too. And so there's one where literally the person shows up in person to see to see one of the persons from work.
Ah!
And then there's this moment where they're hugging. And again, it's done from this Zoom camera. So all you see of them is them in the background. And that moment, you're just like,
wow,
that alone
that's cool.
is better writing than anything that we've seen from a lot of television, because it's that small thing of, this is real, this is something that's impacting people, people are suffering from being isolated, from being alone. That's just that one thing, that one item, had a huge impact.
So real. That is such a real moment.
Yep.
What do you feel like is the pandemic effect on moviegoers for domestically versus abroad? Do you feel like it can be used as an excuse? Like what I've noticed with the pandemic, it's a very nice excuse to do the shit you've always wanted to do, whether that's not visit family, not put out the salt and pepper shakers at your restaurant, whatever you don't want to fucking do, just say it's because of the pandemic. We're only taking credit cards because of the pandemic. So how does that translate to kind of movies and actually the audience's coming out. I mean, you mentioned with Spider-Man, people really wanted to come out because they were like hungry for a good movie.
Yeah. And I think that is, I don't know what the next Spider-Man is. I don't know the next film that's going to bring people out to the films. But I think that what we're seeing from this film and what we're seeing just from the midst of the pandemic is that we have found ourselves, many of us, spoiled on streaming, right? And the ease of access to streaming. And also, I think it helped to expose the issues with movie theaters, right? People on their phones, people talking, the pricing of popcorn and drinks. And so people, I think, spent that time during the pandemic, just like I think gyms probably suffered a lot because of being shut down, whereas home gyms, right, home gym companies have grown a lot. I think that the same thing has happened with movies where people have said, oh, I can watch stuff at home. Let me get a better TV. Let me upgrade my sound system and make it like a theater going experience. So I think that there's going to be a segment of the population that's lost forever, I would say, because they're like, I don't need to go anymore. I can wait.
They've been given the perfect opportunity to like, improve their home,
cut themselves
improve their
off,
yard
basically.
where they normally wouldn't have. They normally would have just kept going. It's easy to keep going the way you're going.
Yeah. So it's basically now going to put a lot of pressure on theaters to innovate more than they already have. You know, we've already seen this innovation happen before the pandemic. There was this huge push, for instance, for AMCs across the country have bars in them. You know, like every single one has a bar in it now. So that's one way that they've been trying to push people to go. A lot of them are getting the reclining seats. There's AMC Prime, which is this Dolby Atmos experience, which is amazing. It's the best way to watch a movie. And obviously you also have more niche theater chains like, what is it called? The Roadhouse theaters.
Oh, the Alamo or the Draft
Alamo,
House?
yeah, Draft House, yeah, Alamo Draft House, and they're known because they have a bar literally in there, so
I like their style,
so children can't really bring your kids in there, and then also they will go to people who are on their phones, like they will actually go after you for doing that. So that's the kind of stuff people say, oh, this is great, I love this. So I think that theaters need to start innovating in that way. The issue, of course, is that they have been the most impacted by this, the theaters themselves, where studios are getting, all kinds of relief, right, from tax credits and, all this other nonsense, and also they already are millionaires. And so they're fine. Theater, whether it's the local mom and pop theaters or whether it's the smaller chains like Alamo Draft House or the bigger theater chains like an AMC or Regal, they got the hardest hit by the pandemic. And so it's a question of, can they afford? AMC is in the best position, I think, because of the if you follow the Stonks. Do you follow Stonks?
A little bit.
Yeah. So the
I think
AMC
I bought
Stonk.
a little bit of AMC, and then everyone was supposed to sell it, and then I didn't get the memo, so I still have a little bit.
No, everyone's supposed to hold on to it.
Oh,
You're supposed to hold on to it. Yeah.
Still holding on to it.
Yeah. So I'm still diamond fist, diamond handing, right? I'm still holding on to mine. Yeah. And so it's one of those things where I wanted to support them because I used to work for an AMC, and so I like just AMC in general, but also because it screwed over the people shorting the stock, because the value went up and they were betting against it. And when it didn't go down, they were like, oh, I guess, we lose tons of money. So I think that's the kind of stuff, too, that has allowed AMC, at least, having extra capital to be able to potentially invest back in their theaters. But they need to do it because they're competing now with home theaters, which is cheaper, in the long run is cheaper. And also you don't have to worry about people.
Yeah. And you're competing with people's right hand. Stay home with me. We'll have a night together. Don't go out.
Yes. Hand puppets.
That's gross.
Hand puppets.
Mikey Gussler, as a rock and roller in Ohioan, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a disgrace to everything rock and roll. They inducted Green Day alongside Paul McCartney. Well, yeah, I never thought the Beatles were that big a deal, but it's fun to go for a day if you have nothing to do and you're in Cleveland.
Ohio.
Oh, Mikey back. Mikey Gussler. Plus, Motley Crue isn't in there because they told them they will never be in there because of their past behavior on and off stage. Yet Ozzy and the Doors are in there. All right, Mikey feels very passionately about the Music Hall of Fame. Samu Rye. Love it when Chrissy gets pervy. It doesn't mean I now am allowed to. I'm content with her gutter mind. Thanks, Sam. All right, Mikey, again, hated the Snyder Cut.
Yep.
Now, Odin, I remember when it came out and you said it was good. A DCEU film that's bad? Shazam. Restore the Snyderverse.
Okay, so Mikey knows that that's not true. I did not like the Snyder Cut when it came out. I was very critical of it, and essentially the only positive thing I said was, "Oh, it took him 4 hours to make a somewhat competent movie. It's still not a good one." So I was not a fan of it. However, and this is what he does know, is I am a fan of Shazam. Shazam, in my opinion, is the best DCEU film yet to be released. Again, not DC in total, right? Just the DCEU specifically, which had been Snyderverse for a very long time. And I know there's a lot of Snyderverse people out there. And hey, more power to you. I'm all about fans, and I'm all about people getting treated the right way. But as far as the films that have come out, personally, Shazam has been the best one.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I have a compliment about from Wiggy. He is odd and carries in him the personality of your true self, a blessed son of Christ. I don't know if this is a compliment to you, Odin, but
I am odd. This is very true. But yes, thank you. If it is a compliment, I say thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's fun. We're having fun. This was good.
Yes.
We're having fun. Oh, gosh. Okay, Odin, thank you so much for coming. Oh, my God. One more from Rocksteady. Whenever Odin streams with the Friday Night Tights group, you're guaranteed to get face palms. Cheers, Chrissy.
This is very true.
I like you, Odin. I like your style.
Thank you.
You're
I
good.
appreciate
You're a good egg. Where can people find you and follow you and watch your movie reviews?
Absolutely. So you can find movie reviews, and then lately I've kind of transitioned to do mostly box office coverage. And I did a recent review breaking down why, if you like teardowns of Scott Mendelsohn, I like to call him Scotty Boy. I did a video tearing down why he's totally off base with what he said about how the drop-off of Spider-Man No Way Home proves somehow that proves Solo is a good movie. Like, he's going back to Solo. He's saying Solo is a good movie because of this other movie. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, if you want to find me, you can find me on YouTube at OMB Reviews. It's the name of the channel. I'm also on Odyssey as well. Big fan of Odyssey. Big fan of all tech media platforms. So you can find my videos on Odyssey. You can also find my videos on Minds.com. So Minds actually does host videos as well. And some people may not know this, but yeah, if you follow me on Minds, I post all of my videos there as well, and you can watch them directly in Minds. Very rarely do those not work where I have to post a link to YouTube there, but usually you can just watch it directly in Minds. You can follow me on social media as well. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Gab, and I'm also on Minds as well. And the one that I try to use most often, though, is going to be somewhere between Twitter and Minds, just because a lot of people are on Twitter still, and then there's a lot of also people that interact on Minds. So yeah. And you might find it still Odin's Movie Blog, because that was the original name of the channel. But obviously OMB Reviews, to me, I think just fits more about what I cover, which is not just reviewing films, but also television and box office stuff as well.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Mikey Gusler back. Oh, It's a Gundam on here. Oh, maybe I will.
He's a fun dude. He's a righteous dude.
You're a righteous dude too, Odin.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, this was so fun.
Oh, this is so fun, eh? Yes.
Oh,
I don't know why I turned into Canadian,
I
eh?
don't know either. I don't know. They all blend together. My brain is mashed potatoes. Thank you so much for coming on, Odin. Thank you so much in the chat for your super chats and your questions and your comments. Love you guys. Until next time, bye. Have a happy new year.
God bless.